Welcome, and Aquaba. My name is Daphne Neal, and I'm the Vice President of the African American Association of Ghana, also known as AAAG. AAAG's mission is to be recognized as a preeminent community vehicle for the cultural, social, spiritual, and economic reintegration of African Americans and other people of African descent returning from the diaspora into Ghanaian society. I'm also very proud to announce that AAAG celebrates its 30th anniversary this year. In February, AAAG celebrates Black History Month based on the theme designated by the Association of the Study of African American Life and History. The theme for Black History Month 2021 is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. On each Tuesday this month, and in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy Ghana American Corner, AAAG will host a webinar series exploring the Black family from several vantage points. Topics will include migration, multi-generational trauma, how the Black family is viewed through the lenses of artists, and how the Black family is depicted in the media. We have included the link to the bios of all our panelists on the webinar registration page. We hope you will join us for each of these programs, and we thank you for joining us today. Our first webinar in this series is entitled Our Journey, Migration, Musings, and Manifestations of Survival. And our moderator is Sheila Clark Eckhart, Dr. Sheila Clark Eckhart, who is a cultural anthropologist and professor emeritus at the University of St. Louis. Dr. E, as she's affectionately called, is a member of AAAG and a volunteer on the planning committee that is responsible for the lecture series. A native of Philadelphia, Dr. E has worked and lived in several African countries and was recently a visiting professor at Webster University, Ghana. And during that visit, she became a COVID refugee. Join me in welcoming Dr. E, our moderator for this evening. Dr. E?
Well, thank you very much, Daphne. It is an absolute pleasure and always good to see you again. I also want to thank all of the attendees. We appreciate your spending part of your afternoon with us, or your evening, actually. It's our afternoon. February is our month, so we know that everyone is pulling on your time and your attention. So the fact that you decided to extend some of that time with us is very much appreciated. And throughout the month, as Daphne mentioned, there will be weekly presentations. Under pre-pandemic days, this series and lots of activities would have actually been held in Accra at the W.E. Du Bois Memorial Center. Since pandemic has changed the world that we know, I still like to give a quote in W.E. Du Bois's honor. And he said, "One thing alone I charge you, as you live, believe in life. Always human beings will live and progress to greater, broader, and fuller lives. The only possible death is to lose belief in this truth simply because the great end comes slowly, because time is long. Families are also long. And in that time frame, they sustain us. And it seems even more timely that given the year of what is now approaching 2 years quickly of pandemic, where many of us are not able to visit and touch and hold and support those people who are in our family networks, who make up our villages, to take time out and just reflect on the different aspects of how we have survived through many different charges and challenges. And so we are delighted. I'm delighted to have two phenomenal co-panelists here with me. I can't even begin to express how much I appreciate Mayor Ella Jones and Professor Kemp Butler taking out their time, because I'm really technically the only one who here is retired. So I pulled them away from their duties to join us for this series. So as Daphne mentioned, I became what I self-proclaimed as a COVID refugee. But I was they took very good care of me while I was in Ghana. And I want to extend a voice and a gratitude to the entire AAAG who took just wonderful care of me. I went to Ghana and I expected to be there for 10 weeks and I came back 7 months later. So that's an indication of what family will do for you when you do right by family. Since all of our bios are posted, I'm not going to read them to you. I do hope that if not before now, you will take time afterwards to read the bios of the presenters. They are really quite phenomenal people in their own rights. But I did pick out some choice points that I thought, this is something I want to say about my co-panelists. And so I also, because we've always been great. We've always been excellent. Langston Hughes is one of my go-to people. And so for each of my co-panelists, I think I found an appropriate quote to sum up what they contribute after I read the bio that I selected out of the one that is posted. So I'll start with Madam Reverend Mayor Ella Jones, the first woman, the first African-American to be the mayor of Ferguson, Missouri. And if we didn't know where Ferguson was before, the world knows where Ferguson is now. But long before she got to be in that spotlight, she was a force in her own right, doing things that she was paying attention to, and some of us perhaps should have been paying attention to. When you talk about family, she is grounded in her faith. Her grandparents were instrumental in establishing an African-American Methodist Episcopal Church in New Orleans, Louisiana. With a Bachelor's of Arts degree in chemistry. Don't tell us Black people can't do science. Okay, she later became certified by the American Chemical Society. As a public servant, Ella's career includes being elected as the councilwoman in April 2015, and then she became a member of the National Women's Political Caucus. She won 50% of a vote in a four-way tie when she first ran for mayor. In 2017, she garnered 42%, or almost basically 43% of the vote. And subsequently in 2020 was elected mayor. Now, the interesting thing, and when we finally get some things right, when you go back, and I did because I didn't know, and I know Ferguson relatively well, but the city of Ferguson, according to the US Census, is 67.4% Black. And it took this long, and it took this mayor to give them a voice. And I thought about it, and I was like, and I was just, getting ready for this presentation, and I was like, what else can I add? And so, because I still have a part-time attachment to the University of Missouri St. Louis, I went in and looked at the presentation for this month. And what do I see? The first page I open is the mayor's picture, because the university is celebrating her. Under the topic, it says their tenacity and passion. And so they also say, this is the alum who gives that city a voice. Okay, and you can't underestimate what it is to give people a voice who have not had a voice, people who have not been heard, but people who pay their taxes, people who go to work, who go to church, who live their lives, but don't have a voice. And so for Ella, my quote is, I have discovered in life that there are ways of getting almost anywhere you want to go if you really want to go. And that's what the mayor has done and continues to do. Next, my guy, Professor Kent Butler Jr. Okay. One of the nicest people you want to meet, first of all. Secondly, now this doesn't hold all over the world, but it holds in some places. Strong Black men are not doing well in the ivory towers. And some would call them the white towers. And they would be speaking the truth. But Professor Butler has stayed the course. He has done extraordinarily well. All of us who know him feel very proud of him. He is mentoring folks from doctoral level down through K to 12. And anyone who has ever done mentoring knows you don't get any days off. Once you either self-assign or people assign you that role, your work never ends. And he has consistently and passionately and intentionally done mentoring for all of our communities. And I've seen him, it's almost like he's got a little fiddle and you see students following him. You be like, where are they going? And then you see him and be like, oh, okay, that's the Butler crew. They following him. And so his research speaks to his passion, his professional accomplishments speak to his work ethic. His young family is a joy to be around. They keep him on his toes. And so when he agreed to come and join me, I was just delighted because I know he also runs a very insightful and informative weekly podcast. And when it comes his turn to talk, I trust that he will share the links of how you might join him. And, and if you don't get it on the day it's given, it's always streamed so you can follow up. You can ask him questions later. He might tell me, why did I invite you to do that? But there it is. I'm still his senior. Don't let that gray hair on his chin fool you. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna, oh, wait, I've got to give you my Langston Hughes quote for Professor Butler. I chose the poem, I Too. Now that poem is a cry of protest against American racism. Its speaker is a Black man, and he laments the way he is excluded from American society, even though he is a key part of it. The poem focuses on African American identity within the dominant white culture of the United States. It encapsulates the history of oppression that Black people by means of slavery, denial of rights, and inequalities. And if you follow Butler's work, you will see why I chose that particular reference from Langston Hughes in reference to my friend and my colleague. So before I hand it over to the mayor, who is just going to delight you with her life experiences, and then to Kent, we'll go in that order, Butler. I'm going to take some liberty because they gave me the moderator position. When you're in Ghana and you join the AAAG, you work. So I got volunteered for this task months ago. Anthropologists, especially cultural anthropologists, and I'm now one of them, made a lot of mistakes. Some of them intentional and some not so much. And I learned very early on in my career, until you know enough, you are probably not able to ask the right questions. And whenever you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers. And so the inability for some of our early scholars, and anthropologists aren't singularly guilty, of being able to ask the right questions of indigenous and native peoples was just because they did not know enough. Now, how much harm was caused as a result of that? So you get the whole literature that goes on about us being primitive, and the whole 19th century evolutionary theory of this misguided notion of superiority. Then you get into urban anthropology and the whole notion of the culture of poverty and pathologies. And then you can go on and on and on and see, and you'd be like, did people really believe that? People believe what they are given until they are informed otherwise. We have now gotten to write our own narratives. We are now duly informed. Our eyes are clear. Our ears are open. Incredible work is coming out of our communities about our lived experiences. And anyone who says there is one Black experience, don't listen to them. You know, it's a bit like what I tell my students, and I remind myself, I don't know what I don't know until I know otherwise. Okay, and so some things we've believed in our hearts forever just happen not to be true. And so to the extent that we are able to have these kinds of forums to enlighten ourselves, to give ourselves room to open up difficult conversations, I think it advantages all of us. And so with that, I'm going to ask the mayor if she would give us some insights, as many or as few, and challenge us with her contributions to think in a more expansive way about how we understand what we bring and the challenges we face. And so I hand this presentation time over to Mayor Ella M. Jones.
I just would like to say thank you, Dr. E, for the opportunity to share with you all. Just want to start from the beginning. I like to start at the beginning of my life. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, with 5 brothers, 2 sisters. Very competitive. My brothers, they really expect a lot from me and my 2 sisters. We grew up with a mom and my dad. Was it dysfunctional? I don't even know what dysfunctional meant at that time. But we all worked together because we all lived together and we all loved together. My grandparents, great big part of our life. And I say that because usually on a Saturday, we would go over to my grandmother's. Then my grandmother would make us go up and down the street and help these old people. I used to call them old people. we used to clean their house. We used to go to the grocery store for them. And grew up in that type of neighborhood. I remember when I was younger, the white women would come to our neighborhood and they would bring these hamper of clothes to be ironed. And my mom would go there along with my grandmother, and they would bid on these hampers of clothes to iron, and they would get paid for ironing the clothes. So my mom got wise. She got other ladies together and told them how much they should bid on the hamper of clothes to iron. And all of a sudden it grew. It grew into a business for my mom. And then she will bargain for more. That means my sister had a hamper to iron. I had a hamper of clothes to iron. And my oldest sister along with my mom. So we grew up knowing that the only way you can make it in this world is that you have to do something for yourself, because no one else is going to do something for you. When I was in elementary school, we used to play with the white kids. This is in New Orleans. We played with the white kids, but the next day they would get on a bus to go to a different school, and we would walk to Dunbar School. But in the evening, they used to come and play with us. So that's when I began to realize why the white people got to do something different than from the Black people. As we grew up, it was always the point where if I wanted to go somewhere, my mom would never let the girls go by themselves. We could not leave the house unless one of our brothers was with us. And I often wonder, why in the world, every time we go somewhere, my brother got to come along with us? My brothers were our protection, because growing up as a Black girl in the South, you needed someone to protect you. And as I got older, I realized that. And even now, my brothers are still protective. So as I grew up and got into different functions, I played a lot of sports. I lift a lot of weights. My brother lift weights, so we lift weights. So I was labeled when I was in high school as being muscle bound. And I took it as a compliment, because I still have my muscles today because I still lift weights. But you had to be in a certain frame of mind and a certain way in order to even make it among Blacks. Because in New Orleans, you are treated according to your color, even you Black. You have your light shades of people, you have your medium shades, and you have the real dark shade people. The Black girls that seem to be light-skinned seem to have got more opportunities than the girls who were dark-skinned. But in high school, when we played sports, you seem to be elevated just above all of it, because you were in a position to help your school to win and bring notoriety to your school. So grew up in basically a competitive situation. For people to understand, people really don't understand that growing up in the South, when we were taught, just because somebody called you Black, you don't have to jump and fight. You have to work harder to prove that you just as good as the next person. I don't think I'm better, but I'm just as good as the next person. So growing up in that environment, I remember one time we got in a fight with some white kids. They spit on us. They called us the N-words. And I look at it now, we were trained to do something different. In other words, just somebody say hateful things to you, you don't have to always fight. You can fight in a better way. It's more to fighting just a fist fight. So we had to learn how to govern ourselves and keep our dignity all at the same time, to keep people from dragging us down. So as time progressed, I married my husband, Timothy Jones. He came out of the service in New Orleans. We migrated to St. Louis because he didn't want to live in the South. My husband people they are from Monroe, Louisiana. So we migrated to St. Louis and we stayed in the city. I remember when we first moved up there, we moved out west. And my husband didn't have a job and I didn't have a job, but I told him, I said, I'm going to catch this bus. It was a bus stop. I said, I'm going to catch this bus. Wherever this bus ends, when I get off, I'm going to get a job. So I got on the bus and I got off. It was downtown St. Louis. And when I got off the bus, it was Macy's. I went into Macy's. I went to the employment office and I just simply told them, I said, I just moved here from New Orleans. I'm looking for a job. I'm a hard worker and I need a job and I can't leave here today until I get a job. And the woman, she said, no one has ever come in there. I said, well, I need a job and I can't leave. So they hired me as a stock person that day. And they asked me, when can I start? I said, I can start right now. So I went to work. I worked for Macy's. My husband, he went to apprenticeship school to become an electrician. We lived off $8 an hour plus the monies that I was making, but we made it, and all of that is history. So we had a good quality of life. We moved from out west to Ferguson back in the early 70s because we didn't want to put my daughter in private school because we wanted to for her to walk to school. In order for her to walk to school, we knew we had to move out the county. When we moved in Ferguson in the early 70s, they threw eggs at us. And the man across the street, his name was Joe, he said that's all they threw at them when they moved in Northland Hills was eggs. But when we put my daughter in school, they immediately put her in a remedial reading class. And I went up there, I said, well, what's going on? They said, well, most kids that we get from the city, they seem to have problems reading. I said, why is it that you all did that to her without testing her? And they had no idea why they did what they did, but they did it. So we just kept moving. We kept moving on. And my husband landed a good job with Boeing. And that was real good for us. I went back to college. My husband went back to college. And a lot of people don't understand that when we went back to college, my daughter was sitting around the dining room table doing her work. My husband was sitting around the dining room table doing his work. I was sitting around the dining room table working. We worked together to get educated. After I graduated from the University of Missouri St. Louis, I went to Washington University School of Medicine as a peptide specialist, worked there. Then I went to KB Pharmaceutical Company. I also pastored 22 years in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And it is a very historical church. Richard Allen, early 1800s. And even today, I stay in that church because when we migrated from New Orleans to St. Louis, it was the church. The church helped us. And it's a connectional church. You could go anywhere in the United States. And when you walk into that church, when they say, I was glad when they said unto me, you immediately belong to the congregation. And this is something I never share with people. I remember my husband was kind of getting on my nerves, and I dropped my daughter off to Sunday school, and my class leader stopped me. She said, Ella, you don't seem happy. I said, well, my husband is getting on my nerves. I think I'm going to divorce him. She said, honey, sit down. Let me talk to you. And I sat down, and this is an older, wise woman. I love her today. She said, now, does he work? I said, yes, ma'am. He go to work every day. She said, does he come home when he get off from work? I said, yes, ma'am. He comes home when he get off from work. She said, do he go out and drink? I said, no, ma'am. He just come home from work. She said, does he bring his paycheck home? I said, yes, ma'am. He give me his paycheck. She said, are you able to do what you need to get done for the family? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, why you want to divorce him? I said, he don't want to do nothing. She said, you ought to be glad, and you better stay with him. I did, and after I got older, I realized, oh, I had the best guy in the world. So to wrap my story up, my husband passed, and when you're at a crossroads in your life, and you're disappointed and you feel like you deserve better, and you can't understand, because I remember when my husband was dying, I prayed to God, and I told him, I said, if you could put more life on Hezekiah, you can do it the same for me. And I was a little angry because he didn't add more time onto my husband's life. So on my own business, everything just doing great. So the Michael Brown fatal shooting happened. My girlfriend called me, Patricia Bynes, and she told me a young Black man had been shot, and he's been laying in the streets for almost 4 hours. I got angry. I said, I need to come around there. She said, no, we don't want you here. I'm like, why you don't want me here? So a couple of days later, she called me, and she said, do you know Michael McMillan? I said, I've heard of him. She said, I want you to meet me at his office. So I went to Michael McMillan's office, and I sat there, and he introduced himself to me, and he told me he was the CEO of the Urban League. I said, well, okay, fine. That's okay. I've met people before. Here come Congressman Clay. He comes in and he sat down, and I told him, I said, oh, my husband used to work on your campaigns. Here comes Senator Claire McCaskill. She comes in and she sits down. Here come Adolphus Pruitt, the president of the NAACP. And we're all sitting around this table. I say, now what in the world do these people want with me? So Adolphus said, Ella, we know that you've been a pastor, you run your own business, you're well respected in the community. We realize your husband has passed. I said, who been searching me? And they asked me to run for office. I said, excuse me, we want you to run for office. I said, okay, I'll do it. I went home and I wrote Mary Kay Cosmetics a letter and told them I resigned my position as a Mary Kay sales director, driving a company car, produce over $250,000 in sales, commission checks, $10,000 a month, no exaggeration, just having a good life. I resigned all of that for my community. The president of Mary Kay Cosmetics called me and told me, Ella, if anyone was going to do something to help turn Ferguson around, we knew it would be you. And the company, they really supported me in the process of dissolving my directorship. I won the race, but people began to thrust their ideas and the way they believe that I should act. See, I was trained, you don't have to be a hurricane, because I've come out of New Orleans with Hurricane Bessie, Katrina, and all them. You don't have to be a hurricane because everybody know you coming. But if you move strategically, when things hit them, they won't even have any idea. And I tell that to people all the time, because when Ferguson went into the consent decree, a group of us met and we talked about it. A lot of people were saying, oh, Wesley wasn't no good. I was no good. We didn't do this and we did. But they didn't know we were strategizing. Because the first thing we had to do, one of the council members, he passed away, Brian Fletcher. We had to find somebody in that seat that was going to vote the way we wanted them to vote. And I remember that Sunday, I'd never forget. Wesley Bell and Dwayne James, they called me. They said, we found the person that's going to help us get the consent decree. I said, well, I'm watching television. Say, you get up, get in your car. And I had them on the telephone and they directed me to Laverne's Mission home. I knocked on the door and I told her, hey, I'm Ella, you don't know me, but I got Dwayne and I got Wesley on the phone and say, we want you to be that person. They fought us tooth and nails to keep Laverne from getting on that council. She got on the council. Mark Burns, who was one of the council members at the time, he got up and we were in closed session. He said, I know what you Black people did. You all started scheming, but you all want Laverne. We're going to give you Laverne. And I looked at him. I said, when Black people get together, you call it scheming. But when white folks get together, you call it strategizing. So we could strategize just like anyone else. So Laverne got on council. We got the consent decree. Then Wesley decided he wanted to move in a different direction. So I told him I was going to run for mayor. Ran for mayor in 2017. Some people believe I lost the race by numbers, but I learned. You see, if you don't learn from losing, and if you feel like failure is fatal, then you'll never win. You'll never learn anything. So I learned Ferguson politics, and I learned how to go about a campaign, how they would do the campaign. So lost the race in 2017, and we were to me, it was funny because the election was that Tuesday. That Saturday, we had a Parks Board meeting, and we're going to dedicate some trees, and I was on the Parks Board. I got up Saturday morning. I went to my meeting. I went to the Parks Board meeting. James Knowles was there, and he looked at me, what are you doing here? I said, well, isn't the Parks Board meeting this morning? We're going to dedicate some trees? He said, yes. I said, well, I'm on the Parks Board. I belong here. It was astonishing to him that I could lose a race on Tuesday and then come back Saturday with a smile. You don't let things get to you to a point that they will drag you down. You have to take all what life challenges that come in your life, in your way, and you have to learn how to live with them and work with them every day, because if you allow small things get you down, then when large things happen in your life, you won't be able to handle them. Ran for mayor in 2020, the pandemic hit. The mayor put out an order, emergency order. No one can knock doors. Okay, that'll work. Got my campaign team together. They don't want us to use a grassroots approach, so we're going to use media. Got the people who can work on the media. We did a media approach to the campaign. Now, I'm going all against the odds. Everyone was saying, oh, Heather is going to win. Ellie is not going to win. Heather is a shoe-in, and she this, she that. She got an engineering degree, and she know the budget, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But you know what? You got to love people. If you cannot show people how much you care, they're not interested in how much you know. And I have worked all my life caring for people. When the election night came, I won the election. God is good. Everything is history, and still working. And I share this with people as I come to a close. Just because you win the election, that does not make people like you. Some people hate you even more. And I'm sitting on a council is a group of people that I did not choose. And at every turn, they tried their best to make me angry. But I've learned you don't have to get in the dog fight with folk. Let them go head on, do what they have to do, but make certain you stay focused, because the people empowered me, not to be in power, but empowered me to lead them and make decisions to better the quality of life. Yes, the African American people in Ferguson, they have a voice because I am their voice. And I am not going to ever do anything sitting in that seat as a mayor where I won't take in consideration my people. I'm there to serve everyone, but I have a passion for my people. And that's why I continue to sit there, because it's important to my people to have a voice. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, Ferguson, they're going to be all right, okay?
Yeah.
They're going to be all right. Okay, and so with that, I'm going to ask Professor Butler to come in and share some of his wisdoms with us, some of his insights. I see he put information about his podcast up for you. So Professor Butler, have at it, please.
So, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this this gathering, and thank you to my brothers and sisters in Ghana, and I appreciate you allowing me to have words with you and to share from my perspective. I enjoy having the opportunity to speak because when I think about life earlier in the day, I was more of a shy individual. I was kind of reserved, and I kind of sat back and I didn't watch the world. But I found that I have a lot to say. I think having mentors, very much like Dr. Sheila Clark-Ekong in my life and others, have really pushed me to kind of share my voice and to be a part of a story. Mayor Ella, I will tell you that I lived in Missouri as well. I was in Florissant. I lived on Berkemeyer Court when I was there. And I also have been moved by the Michael Brown story. When I went back to visit, I believe actually Dr. Sheila Clark-Ekong and I had dinner that time I was there. One of my major focuses when I was in town was to go to the memorial site where he was murdered. And it just leaves a profound effect on my life, just having been there to witness that, and to witness that police brutality and just the lives of Black men, especially here in the United States, have been so traumatized and also put out to ridicule and to seem to give no real honor and perspective to a group of individuals or men who are our lineages, who, when you look at it from an anthropology situation or look at it from just historical references to slavery and things along those lines, Black men have carried the United States on their back and have done so much, and to be treated with the kind of disdain that we have on a day-to-day basis. I want to, if possible, share my screen. I know I have that capability. I'm wondering if it is appropriate or okay for me to do so. So I would ask that question to kind of talk a little bit about where I want to go today. Is that all right?
It's all right with me.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that then. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to kind of talk to you all a little bit about what I hope can give you a sense of why I do the work that I do, and maybe come from that perspective. That would be my wisdom for you all. But I have to go back out. And here we go. So I apologize for that bit of a delay. So you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So one of the things that has happened in the United States has been that we need to really recognize that we are living on the legacy and the work and hard work of those individuals like Martin Luther King and those in the civil rights movement, today anyway, who made a difference, who changed the world for how we are able to kind of move forward. I am nothing without having the ability to stand on their shoulders. And so I recognize that. And so I just want to give you a sense of who I am and why I do the work that I do. So back when I was living in Missouri, I actually was asked to go and speak at a high school, a middle school actually, of individuals who were having some racial strife. The strife was because there was a white community that was having students who were actually coming to it and being bused from St. Louis proper. And it caused a whole lot of stress and strife, and they were fighting. And I came across this passage in a book that talked about revenge and being upset and having this type of attitude towards people who don't look like you. And so in reading through it, the piece that really hit me the most was the line that talks about, what act of wickedness would you inflict on someone merely because you did not get your way? And for me, I see that happening from the white society more often than not. And we just sometimes in the Black community take our lumps and our bruises and we complain and we do things, but we still have our resilience and we move forward and we get the job done. No matter how many times they come at us, we turn it around and say, we're not going to allow you to break our spirit. And we move forward. And so with that, I find myself moving as well. So in humanizing myself, I also have to step outside of my comfort zone very often. Like I said, I was a shy individual. People like Dr. Clark Econ got me to be a little bit more boisterous, to speak out, to recognize that I own my own existence when it comes to doing the work and making sure that I leave a mark and making sure that I bring people along with me when I do my moving forward, right? That I just don't go alone. I go and I bring people with me. But I got that from my parents. My parents were definitely individuals who kind of put me on a trajectory towards success. My father did not get much past third, fourth, sixth grade in terms of his education. My mom got her master's when I was in high school, but they put education on the forefront. They said, this is what we want for you. And they kept us in school, they kept us involved, they kept us doing things. And I just didn't realize that how much of a sacrifice that they made in my life. The sacrifice because they were seeing things like this in their existence when I was just a mere young person. Before I came along, they saw signs like this and had to deal with life like this and what it meant to be able to kind of deal with that in a white society that did not want them to be around, yet were the reason why they were there in the first place. So think about that. We don't want you here, but we brought you here. There's some misguided understanding of what they mean to the world by just having that type of a thought process. So my parents, my mother was one of 17. And this is my grandparents and my mom. It was just a joy to grow up in their family. I am one of 50 cousins. I have so much to go for, but I am the only one in my family that has a PhD in my immediate family, coming from my grandparents on down. And that's on my mother's side and my father's side. Recently, a cousin of mine on my father's side just got her PhD. And I've had my PhD now for over 20 years. So think about that in terms of how set back the Black community sometimes is in moving forward. But the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that took George Floyd's life helped me to even find my voice even more. I am now working as an interim chief equity diversity officer on campus, and I get to help the university make a difference in the lives of Black and brown individuals. And it's because of the lessons I've learned and my ability to find my voice and to be a voice for the Black community. My mother grew up in a time when they set her house on fire. She was 10 years old, and she was with her brothers and sisters in this home and my grandparents, and they escaped this because they didn't want them around. This is not a story that my mother and father told me about. This was something I learned after they passed away, because they wanted to shield us, but they also still wanted us to know that we can have the highest of all things and obtain what we would like to obtain. But they had, in their time, had to live in a fire station because their house was burned down. This is how America treated my family, or my mother and her brothers and sisters and her mother and father, and during a time when they should have been able to move forward and grow and thrive, just like any American could move forward and thrive. But all of this helped me have a self-knowledge about myself and to recognize that in order for me to be able to use my intelligence, to be able to understand who I am as a person, that I need to recognize other people as well. I need to recognize cultures, and I need to understand what races are dealing with. Similar to what Malabudi talked about, right? He says that a self-knowledge, if it's working, means self-love. And so as a mentor, that's what I do. I go and I try to help these young people recognize that they need to love themselves. They need to know their history. They need to recognize from whence they've come so that they can become the great people that they need to be. There's a saying that says, "Let me be great." Well, I am doing my best to help them be great. So that's what I do. I do a mentorship program. And so these are some of the things that I have done. And up in the left corner, those are some of my boys who are at an elementary school here in Florida. But we do what we do because we have to make sure we leave a mark. We need to leave a legacy that goes beyond what we are doing. We need to leave it for the youth so they can move forward as well. Because I really truly believe that all that's necessary for evil to triumph is for people, good people, to do nothing. And I think John Lewis stands with me on that, right? Good people cannot sit back and allow anyone to take over and control the narrative. And there's so many people who want to control the narrative. They want to have power over people's lives because it makes them feel good. But what makes me feel good is helping people find their power and allowing them to use it in the most responsible way to make sure that all of us have success and all of us have a right to be here. And so that is the mission. That's always the mission, to showcase that I am better than what you think I am, and I have a right to be here. Not that I'm better than you, but I'm better than you think I am, and I have a right to be here. This is my wife. She helps to ground me. She keeps me in a sane space, but she also says to me, takes me to task when I'm off the beaten path. And so very much like what Ella was talking about a little earlier, you know, our spouses kind of help us kind of thrive as well. But the reason why I do the work that I do is my daughter. I do this work because it's really important. It is really important that I leave for her a world that is much better than the world that I entered into. And I would hope that she has every right to be able to move forward. I put people in front of her like Dr. Clark E. Kong. I put people in front of her like Vice President Kamala Harris. I do those things because I want her to know that she is special, she should be exalted, and we want to move her forward to do the things that she's able to do. So why do I do this work? Because she's worth the fight. Her name is Summer Joy. And for Summer, I sacrifice. I try to my best to find that everyone has unity and bring unity forward. right? I want her to be able to be with her white counterparts and her brown counterparts and her Asian and her all intersectionalities of people. I want her to be able to be around. The morality of it all, the meliorism, bringing people together to do the good work, to make sure that everybody moves forward, making sure that there's equity and equality in the things that we do. But most of all, respect. Recognizing that in all things, we should respect every person. No one should go unchained. And nobody should be hurt by the fact that somebody wants to tolerate them. I ask people to take that word out of their vocabulary. No one should be tolerated. Tolerated is a power system type of a thing, right? I tolerate you. But we want people to move past the toleration and recognize that you need to respect the person for what they bring to the table. So I'll end with this. This is a Langston Hughes poem that I have in my dissertation. And the reason why I put this in my dissertation, because it showed me just who I was, right? It let me know from a very, very young age that I had a right to be here, right? I fought like heck to get my dissertation done. And there were dark days, and there were walls that were put in front of me. And I learned just in this poem, I dedicated it to my mentors and to people who were sewing into me during my doctoral program. And I laugh because when I look at my dissertation and I see this poem in there, one of the things that I did was very corny. At the very end, I said, "Thank you, mentors. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for letting me find my whirling dreams of sun." Something to that effect. And I'm like, okay, that was really cheesy. That was really corny, but it really was a sentiment of who I was and what I wanted to say. So I just want to read this to you. As I grew older, it was a long time ago. I have almost forgotten my dream, but there it was then in front of me. Bright like a sun, my dream. And then the wall rose. That wall, you know, that racism, that you don't belong, those words that people will put into my spear, that I didn't have what it took to be successful, right? Those were the things, those were the walls that were coming up, right? Then this wall rose slowly between me and my dream. Rose until I touched the sky, the wall, a shadow. I am black. I lie down in the shadow because that's what life wants sometimes, for you to give up your dream, to move away from that and know that you're maybe not worthy. No longer the light of my dream before me, above me, only the thick wall, only the shadow, my hands, my dark hands break through the wall. And that's the exciting part. And that's what I want to bring to my mentees. I want them to break through their walls, no matter what the disparity is, no matter what the problem or the changes that they need to make in their life is, that they can break through that wall. Find my dream. Help me shatter this darkness, to smash this night, to break this shadow into 1,000 lights of sun, into 1,000 whirling dreams of sun. And I live by this. This is something that I believe that Langston Hughes put into my spirit, because as a Black man, I can only continue to fight and break through the wall and not allow someone to have in their mind what the world and what life should be for me, that I should be able to move forward and do the things that I need to do. And so I thank you for allowing me to share my screen and to share that little bit of wisdom. Turn it back over to you.
Wow, who knew? So Langston Hughes is also your go-to guy.
My go-to guy.
Hey, there you go.
And so when you sent me that poem, I had to laugh, because I was like, yes.
There goes that 6 degrees of separation. And then, you know, I thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. And as you were both talking, and how expansive and how things come to us, sometimes when we're least expecting them and when we are called. And I hadn't thought about it for a long time, but as I mentioned early on, Du Bois said, life is long. The struggle is long. And I went to West Africa as a new wife to Nigeria I was 22 years old. And people and I was in the heart of Yoruba land. And part of the normal everyday greeting is to greet you about how you pass the night, especially if it's morning, and to ask you about all of the people who reside in your household or in your compound. And lots of African peoples, not just the Yoruba, don't count children because children are your wealth. And so to count it is considered to be boastful. So you don't count it, you just say, you respond that they are doing very well, you thank God or whatever your belief system is, because there are many. And so people would begin to greet me about all of these people I had in my household. Well, I didn't have anybody. I just had me and my husband. We had just got there. And so finally I asked one of my colleagues, because I went into a secondary school environment to teach, and I said, you know, what is the appropriate response? And she said, thank them for all of the greetings, because what you don't have now, you will have. And so don't mess up the scheme of things. That is the normal order of things, that you will have a house, you will have a household, you will be responsible for people, and they are wishing all of those people well. And I thought, okay, I got this. You know, and as time went on, the house got full. My in-laws saw to that. Before we even had children, we had lots of help to have for when these children would happen. Fast forward a lot of years, the marriage doesn't work. But one of my in-laws calls me, and by this time I'm in graduate school at UCLA, and she says, Auntie, I heard that you and my uncle are divorced. And I was like, I don't know where this is going, so let me just, you know, I'm still a good in-law, so let me just follow where this is going. And I said, yes, we are divorced. And she said, oh, I just wanted to confirm, but I know you are still paying so-and-so school fees, aren't you? So she was just getting a clarification. The fact that we were divorced did not divorce me from the family, nor did it divorce me from my responsibilities and obligations to that family. And so I assured her that, yes, I would still be paying the school fees. And she said, oh, we are praying for you. You know, we are always praying for you. And I thanked her. And I must admit, I'm divorced, but I'm still a very good in-law. So you don't know how long the family will be. And I think by the presentations we've heard today, clearly we are building family structures at different kinds of levels. Perhaps in some cases, we are going to generate an entire new narrative, explanatory narrative, that others did not understand. Early researchers didn't understand what lineage really meant or what ancestry meant. Now it's been commercialized. Everybody's going for ancestry.com. We knew about ancestors and what that meant in village situations from time immemorial. So there are lots of things that we're still to learn. And I think today's conversation, I was enchanted by hearing the mayor's story again, because I've heard her give it in different versions, different clips. And as she said, her story keeps evolving because now Ferguson has a voice. Professor Butler, your story is just beginning because you are here in these United States of America. And if we didn't need strong Black men, voices and mentors, protected. Okay, so I'm not sure if Daphne is going to moderate questions or what the plan is going forward. Daphne, can you kick in here?
Yes.
Okay.
We welcome questions.
Yeah, how would you like us to proceed?
Well, we'll open it up and say if people have questions, they can put them in the chat box, and then I'll pass them on to you, Sheila.
Excellent. Thank you.
Dr. Khan,
Yes, please.
thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I think one of the things that we need to recognize is that there's something about giving people their flowers. And you talk about that from the Black church experience, right? When you say, give someone their flowers while they can smell them, while they know that you are thinking about them and loving on them and things along those lines. And so I want to take this opportunity to tell you that though we don't have the same discipline, we have the same belief system and drive and ability to kind of grow from our educational experiences, right? We decided our pathway, but something happened where you cross pathways. And when I was at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, there was no reason for me and you to even know one another. We lived on different sides of the road. You were on one side of the campus, I was on another. But there were ways that things happened where we were able to kind of bridge the gap. But even through all of that, and our opportunities to be together, to go to lunch, I remember this place we used to go to down the road. Can't remember the name of it right now, but just all the times that you would sow into me and help me when I would be a young professor coming in and didn't know what was going on. When I had white colleagues who were coming for me and challenging my own existence because they wanted to say my research wasn't important enough. You were the one that was there that said, yes, it is important enough. You were the one that was there that said, stay the course. So you don't know how valuable that is. Or you do know how valuable that is, or you wouldn't have done it. Let's put it that way. So I don't want to put that on you. But what I will say to you is that I am who I am because of people like you who allowed a skinny Black kid from Connecticut to move to St. Louis to think that they had an opportunity to move forward, but didn't know what that meant, right? Didn't know the roadblocks, didn't know all those things that were going to be standing in the way, but giving me enough courage to kind of go beyond the barriers that were there. And so I just want to thank you in this space.
Well,
you bring me back to my homeland.
Yeah, I appreciate it. When I hear the mayor talk, and I'm like, I could listen to her all day because in some ways she reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother had 10 children. I was and 10 living children. Now, I don't know if anything else happened. If it did, she didn't share it. But I was the oldest grandchild. I was the first grandchild. And my grandmother never learned to drive, but she could walk your heels off. And people always thought we were very well behaved when we were with her. We were, because we were tired. By the time we got to where we were going, we were tired because we walked. But she told us those things that she would say, common sense, that what you read in books is not everything. Mm-hmm. And this was a woman who had an 8th grade education, and her mother died on the operating table. Her father disappeared out of fear, and she basically became Miss Clark at that point. And she told us common sense things. Like Ella said, you knew what you had to do. In South Philly, people used to have a little stoop, a white stoop, which was the step leading into the house. On the weekends, every child was out there washing, scrubbing those steps. You'd be like, why are we scrubbing these steps and people are walking on them? Well, we might have been thinking it because we never said it. We just did what we were told. Because we knew that they didn't mean us any harm. Okay, and so this notion of what was fair, what wasn't fair, they knew that life wasn't going to be fair. And so they had to prepare us. And so in some ways, like you, we got lots of family. When we take family photographs, we have to do color coding so you can tell which generation people belong to. But I can give only because what people have given to me.
Mhm.
I can't give what I don't have. And how I got what I have is because people give to me. I mean, can you imagine going someplace for 10 weeks and coming back 7 months later?
Mhm.
And when I got back, some people was like, why'd you come back? And I was like, well, I got some kids over here and a grandson who was really expecting me to be back for his birthday. So, you know, this is how we do family. And lots of folks don't understand, you know, because they keep hoping we're gonna fall down.
Mhm.
You know, they be like, didn't we just hit them? Isn't that, you know, like, oh, say she lost. And then the next few days she was there and they were like, oh. And you know she was looking real when she got there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, have no doubt about that. So I think these are the things that we get February on a calendar, but our life is actually 12 months plus one, because we got things going on that some folks will never understand. And in my mind, it's just as well, you know, because if you don't invest to understand, then that is your loss. And that's the way I sort of proceed and push my life down the path. But thank you for the acknowledgement. Thank you for the flowers. I don't see any questions. So wait a minute.
There's a question.
Oh, okay. You see it?
Yeah, I'll read it out to you.
Okay.
This is, okay, I have a comment. Actually, I have never been to America or anything, but the fact that Black Lives Matter is something that I hold very dear to me. I think we should stop differentiating, you know, African, and African American, because whatever the case is, still we're Black and we all should be involved. Because Malcolm X said this sometime past, and I just wanted to say poetry is Black. Because I am a poet, and I know that words mean, and I know what poetry has done to me. Thank you. I can go on, but I just want to stop here and thank you all so much. So I think the question, or the thing that I take from this is to talk about how we identify, how we self-identify as, whether we say African American, Black, African, and things along those lines. And I guess I put that out there to you all. What's your thoughts in regards to how we self-identify? It goes back to what I said earlier about self-knowledge.
I would just add that I think it's optimal that we recognize that we do get to self-identify.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember sitting with a mentor, German, considerably older than I was at the time, when there was a discussion about whether or not we were going to be called Black or African American. And there wasn't a Black or brown person who was part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And he called my attention to it and he said, what do you think? And I said, I think they shouldn't be discussing it. Because how do they get to determine how I self-identify? And so if anything that comes out of all of where we are growing, and we must continue to grow and adapt and be dynamic and responsive and resilient and all of those incredible things, is that we get to self-identify. Ella, would you like to join into that?
Well, a lot of people like to label themselves. I know that I'm Black, And I always tell people I am Black and I am proud to be Black. I don't wish to be no one else other than me. My self-worth, my self-esteem comes from a long line of Black women who taught their daughters, that you are who you are and realize whose you are. When you know that you belong to a bunch of strong, proud Black women who take care of their family, love their family, and serve God, then you don't have to worry. You know, I look at young people now and how they identify themselves, how they label themselves, because someone has not taken the time to pour into them what they need for their self-esteem and their self-worth. You know, I remember when I was first elected to the council, a Black man walked up to me. He said, you know what? You walk with your head up too high. I said, but you don't know. You don't know how my mom, my grandma and them did for me to walk with my head up high. I said, guess what? But you look at my daughter, she walks with her head up high too. We don't have no business looking down, because you've got to learn your self-worth. You've got to learn who poured into you for you to be who you are. So when people begin to, you know what? People label me so much, I just look at them and say, you just don't know. You just don't know. So it's in your self-worth, your self-esteem, you know, and I don't care where I go, who I interact with, I'm going to always take them, my whole family with me. And I tell people right now, I say, just because on Tuesday night, you see Ella Jones in the seat, but you don't see who's supporting around her. You don't see the people who paid that price for me to sit in that seat. You only see me, but you don't see the people behind me. And that's the key. I sit there because of the people who are behind me, who have sacrificed for me to be there. So.
Dr. Butler, there was a question that came up. And the question was, how do your mentees react to racial injustices meted out to people of color?
It's hard to speak for on behalf of every single last one of them, but I will tell you that the ones that I've dealt with recently are dismayed and hurt. There is this pain and suffering that goes on. It's hard to kind of to give words to what has happened in the Black and brown community when you talk about lives being lost, like Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown, and the ones that have just happened recently. The one, George Floyd death, has spoke volumes to America, has spoke volumes to Black and brown men in particular, who have been screaming this story for decades and decades and decades. I would say eons, going back to the times when we were enslaved. And, you know, you speak out and you say it time and time again, this is happening to me. This is happening to me. You all have to recognize that this is, you know, this is not that I don't want to do good for myself. I don't want to move forward, but there are so many people who are holding me back. Just like the poem, right? There's so many people who are trying to keep me down. And so I try to strengthen them, those who come into my life, strengthen them to recognize that all those little scenarios that are happening, all these things that you see crop up in the news, all the way that they kind of badmouth or stereotype Black men, that's not who you have to be. And that's not who you are. And so if someone sees that in you and that's not who you are, shame on them, that's them. You can't own somebody else's misgivings. You have to recognize who you are and you have to stand in that truth. And so you have to be empowered in that way. So what I try to do is empower them to see their self-worth and allow them to then move forward, because that's what people did for me. When I was the shy kid who didn't want to move forward, who didn't know, I mean, I would walk up and see people even in my own discipline, who I was researching and doing the work of, and I was scared to talk to them because I felt that they was on this pedestal. And I realized, just in talking to one of my mentors, he's like, do not put me on the pedestal. I'm human. I'm just like you. I may have this under my belt or this under my belt, very much like what Mayor talked about. I may have these things under my belt, but you don't know what it took for me to get here. And in the fact that I'm here, I am not going to now take that and use that against you, because I want to see you persevere as well. And so that's my mission. My mission is to help them persevere. I hope I answered that question.
So Daphne, are we ready to round up, round out?
I think we are. Our closing time is 8:30 officially.
Okay. All right, very good. Again, on behalf of my co-panelists, I want to thank everyone who decided to take part of their evening, their afternoon, to join us. I trust the conversations will continue. And in that, we all live with our truth. We really don't have time to invest in the made up narratives that other people would like us to embrace as our truth.
Right.
Other people want to be in awe. Every time Black folks, brown folks do something, they're like, oh, I didn't know they could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Let them stay in that space. And let us keep doing what we do, how we do it, and in the process, continue to sustain each other, feed into each other, because life is long and families are longer. So with that note, I thank you. Take care, stay safe. COVID ain't done with us yet. And that is real.
That is real.
That's the whole real truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the world knows it. Daphne, we're gonna sign off unless you tell us otherwise.
I want to just say some thank yous also. I want to thank you, Dr. Clark Ekholm, Madam Mayor Ella Jones, and Dr. Kent Butler for your participation. This has been a wonderful dialogue, and the comments I hope you've been reading in the box.
Thank you to everybody who's been commenting. Yes, I couldn't get to every single last person, but thank you so much.
We also want to say a special thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Someone asked, what's next, Mayor Jones? Stay tuned.
Wonderful.
I think the state could use a different governor.
Ooh.
I also want to say a special thank you to U.S. Embassy Ghana American Corner for their technical assistance and their willingness to collaborate with us on this wonderful project. We hope to see you all next Tuesday. We may have a little competition with some of the things that are happening in the US, but we're probably going to just go ahead as planned. So we hope to see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. GMT for the second in a series of our webinars. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay safe